Om Shanti, warm welcome to our session tonight. So, exploring the essentials of Raj Yoga in an interview format. And what that means is that you also have the opportunity to ask questions. But our interviewer, I believe, has prepared an approach to tonight's session. So, we'll see how that goes. But please feel free to type in the chat box if there's anything that you would like to add to the conversation. We're going to start with a reflection. So again, seated comfortably and well supported with the chair I'm sitting. And eyes can be open in a natural way. So Raj Yoga is designed to be a way of living. So we actually use the term Raj Yogi. Not so much that I have yoga, but I am a yogi. So learning to live in a spiritual way or connected to spirituality. So open-eyed meditation is definitely a stepping stone towards making this all a natural part of my day-to-day life. So eyes open in a natural way, no tension. And starting in a very basic way, just bringing my mind into the present moment, very aware of sitting here in this space at this time. Almost immediately noticing how easily my mind can wander or be pulled. Something I see might pull my thoughts. So the sense organs, the physical senses, or I might remember something from earlier in the day that's not resolved, or perhaps something that I anticipate happening in the future. And that's usually quite task or role oriented. That too can pull my mind. I just watch without judgment, fascinated by how easily my mind is pulled out of the present moment. And just by observing the activity of the mind, it becomes easier to come into the present moment, aware that there is my mind, but also me, the one observing my own mind. I am in the moment, observing the activity of my mind. And I myself, the observer, I'm in a very calm state as I watch my mind, feeling that calmness of my own stage, my own nature, as I watch the mind race. This incredible contrast between the activeness of the mind and the stillness of me, the observer. This journey of coming to know myself on a deeper level. Who am I, the one observing? Om Shanti. So, warm welcome again. If you've just arrived, this is the Essentials of Raj Yoga in an interview format. So, welcoming our interviewer, Nora. And what will we explore today?
Shanti, good evening. Hopefully the microphone works. So actually last week we had covered a very interesting topic, changing from old to new, which is very much connected to today's topic, which is aim and objective. And there might be somewhere like, what is aim and objective? And so to move into that topic, finding it relevant, it is relevant to everyone actually, is purpose. Do you feel that everyone has a purpose in life, whether they know it or not?
I think, yeah, we're quite purpose driven at this time. The idea that every being on this planet is really seeking peace and happiness. That's kind of the driving force, the purpose behind everything we do. We might have very interesting ideas of how to get it. That's a different topic, but we're all quite similar under the skin in terms of having this purpose or objective of peace and happiness. So I think sometimes it's very nice to zoom out, to draw back and look at the big picture. What exactly is our objective? We get caught up in the details or minutiae of our day-to-day life, but what exactly am I trying to achieve? What's driving me?
And so, is there a difference from what you would call perhaps maybe a limited purpose versus an unlimited purpose? I mean, even that word limited versus unlimited is maybe quite an accessible word for some.
I think that in a way there's a difference between successful and unsuccessful. So this is where aim or method is another word we use for aim, where I can have, I'm trying to attain something that's actually, in this example, not physical, isn't limited, isn't physical, but I'm trying to go at it in a limited or physical way. So we may not, our aim and objective may not match up. And so I see sometimes souls working so hard to achieve something, but it's not quite clear on how the objective actually works and what method would achieve that. So they're wondering, why is this not successful, even though they're putting a lot of effort into it. This happens quite a bit in the fitness industry. Souls have certain objectives. And again, it's all for peace and happiness. That's the funny thing. I'm doing a lot of work, but it's really not the accurate method to achieve that objective.
Then could this alignment, even maybe not even knowing what I'm looking for, and I'm not sure if everyone is always aware that they're looking for peace and happiness. So in terms of Raj Yoga, what does this first lesson that we learn about considering myself to be a soul have anything to do with a sense of purpose?
So you had just said, not really clear on what they're looking for. The way it shows up on the surface in our day-to-day life is, I want this to happen. That's basically what our days look like. We wake up in the morning and we want certain things to happen. And wanting or desire is actually the exact wrong way to become peaceful or happy. I know that sounds strange. So, looking at a state which frees me from wanting so that I can get to that peace and happiness. And ironically, this idea of experiencing myself as a spiritual being is going to liberate me from that wanting state and actually move me into a giving state, which is all so much connected, very connected to peace and happiness.
It seems to be related actually to a session we had on Tuesday, which was the relationship between contentment and silence. And so, experiencing myself to be a soul, and this word contentment is interesting because it has the word contents in it. And so, when you were sharing about experiencing myself to be a soul, and I can come to a state where I can actually naturally give, could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, the story we usually tell, which I think we told before, is, have we, the Queen's necklace?
Possibly.
Okay. Very quickly. So there was a queen who had a favorite necklace. She always kept it in the same jewel box. Every morning she would wake up, open the jewel box, there's the necklace. Her day is perfect. And this describes, of course, our desire that, peace is something external and that, we kind of hope things go the way we want every day, everything in its place. But one day she wakes up and opens the jewel box and the jewel box is empty. And she's actually quite distraught. So she starts to search everywhere for this favorite necklace. She calls in her servant. They turn the room upside down, cause quite a bit of havoc in the room looking for the necklace. No luck. And then she recruits the whole staff of the palace, turn the palace upside down, looking for the necklace. This, of course, is all an allegory for how we go about life. Turns the whole palace upside down, still no necklace, issues a decree. Everyone in the kingdom must search for this necklace. And then finally, one bold soul comes up and says, I have found the necklace. And she's delighted. And she says, where is it? And he says, it's around your neck. So this idea that what we are seeking, what we think will make us content, is actually around our neck. It's part of who we are. It's not out there. And so the contentment one feels when they go into the experience of being a soul, because in that state I experience my true nature, which is the very thing I'm seeking, which is peace. Happiness, which we call peace in action, happiness is simply sustaining that feeling as I come into action, rather than looking for that peace from outside. I have the peace and I'm expressing it through my activity, and that brings happiness. So to really feel my true nature, it's an extremely liberating feeling. I'm a soul because I experience that peace that I've been looking everywhere for, that I've been trying to get fulfilled through different things and people and roles. I actually experience it in myself. And it really just is so liberating.
It feels like it could be quite an abstract sense of understanding for many that peace is around my neck, peace is in me, in the sense that we have become quite, we're so much associated right now in terms of what happens out there and how I feel. It's basically like automatic. And to even fathom that or even grasp what that feels like, it seems to be a big leap for some.
It is, and yet I think it kind of irritates people that they are so influenced by the things around them and reacting. And this is really the essence of Raj Yoga, which means Raj means sovereign or king, to not be a slave or a victim, but actually a master or ruler of the self. And so, yeah, we have this formula of being extremely affected by what's going on. And we often say, well, that shows that I'm a caring person, that I'm, and unfortunately, it's generalized to everything. Of course, it's important to be sensitive to what is going on around you and the empathy and compassion, but that's very different from being affected by, influenced, or reactive. And so, this idea of being able to turn that formula upside down, that actually it's mastery of the self that will determine how I feel in situations, so that I can really respond in a productive or benevolent way to what's going on rather than being enslaved. So I think everyone gets that. In fact, that's one of the reasons people give for why they come to take the Raj Yoga course, is they don't want to be so affected by everything. There's two meanings of sensitive. One is empathy or emotional intelligence, we call it. That's very nice. But the other is affected by everything. Hyper, emotional roller coaster, deeply, really feeling a victim of everything. And that's makes for a very difficult life.
So speak to me like I'm in grade one.
Okay.
How is aim and objective relevant?
Mm.
And how does understanding it um, really become something that's really useful in Raja Yoga?
Because when we come to take a course like this, we've got some really set ideas in our head of how things work. And it's almost gone deep into our subconscious that if I want to get to that place, this is the path I have to take. And it's basically assumed that everyone knows that, even though every time I take that path, it doesn't get me there. I just can't seem to stop trying. And I know I've given the example of driving in Washington, D.C., which is a fascinating city from a vernacular perspective, because what would happen in Washington, D.C. is, the road system is very convoluted. So you would see the building that you want to get to, and you set off on a road that seems to be pointing in that direction. But before you know it, you're actually going the opposite way because the system is so convoluted. So I would always have to take directions from someone I trusted and follow those directions, even though part of me was saying, this doesn't look like it's going to get you. It's like, but no, I trust the person who gave me the directions. And even though it looks like I'm going in the opposite, sure enough, I would get there. So this idea that we really think that fulfilling desires will get us peace and happiness. This is a flawed. It's again based on the formula that if I can just get things out there to be the way I want, I will be peaceful and happy. That formula. And what we're starting to realize, how can that, like, I will just be wanting all the time and trying to control, and it's going to stress me out, leads to attachments and addictions and all sorts of, so really having to examine, what what road do I need to be on to reach my destination? And I might be on the wrong road, even though this logical side might be saying, no, it looks like it's pointing. Doesn't that make sense? That if I get what I want, I'll be happy. If I have my desires fulfilled, I'll be happy. And just imagine everyone in the world walking through the day in their heart, just saying, I'm out to get what I want. Everybody's thinking that way, that what I want is the main thing. And if I just, we know it's the world we have today. That's what we're going to get. Is this crazy world we have today. So, really having to examine the formula I'm using to live my life. And what we suggest is the reason that this isn't actually our innate way of operating. Children actually don't really operate this way until they're taught. This is not our innate way of operating, that my desires are fulfilled. Quite opposite, children we love because they're so pure and they seem so happy and light, just content with the simplest things. Purity, not desires, is actually what leads to peace and happiness. So, really having to examine the method I'm using.
So it might be a bit of a review for some. What is purity then? In the context of what we're talking about, that's a pretty loaded word for some.
Yeah. In very basic terms, purity means nothing foreign mixed in. So we use the example of orange juice, that if I have 100% pure orange juice, it means that there's just orange juice in there and there's nothing else. That's the basic. And we get that with stuff, and we like it with stuff. We like to go buy. We're not really going to go into the store and buy 100% impure orange juice. That just doesn't do anything for us. So we like this word purity when it's applied to stuff. We like pure water. We even like pure intentions. But when we start to apply it to our own state of being, we seem to feel judgment is connected. And that's really not the case. I think, yes, we might feel a loss in not having that purity, and that might make us a little bit sad. I know I was thinking about this the other day, that the last year of high school that I did was in the States. And for English class, we had to read all the great, contemporary literature, Catcher in the Rye, Lord of the Flies, all of these things. Every single book we read was about loss of innocence. Every single one. It was quite fascinating, actually, that these are the great. So I think that's in our psyche, that we miss we say true self or authentic self. These are all words that are connected to purity. We miss it. Judgment has nothing to do with it, actually. And I think we just miss ourselves. And getting a method, again, an aim, feeling supported in returning to that state is really all we need, is to feel that we have a really good method to return to that state.
So could you maybe perhaps describe a bit more in terms of where do I aim and what do I achieve, and why is there that relationship? Especially because, as you had shared in perhaps the first question, we seem to not be very clear about what I'm aiming for, or maybe what I'm aiming for is not the right thing, or maybe my purpose in life isn't really what I think is actually really good for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really puts together everything we've talked about so far, that this idea that if I aim at purity or truth, then I will get peace and happiness. And so, what is aiming at purity or truth, right? And we do connect truth and purity together in this study. So I need to kind of know what the truth is, and if I can have an experience of the truth, it starts to awaken the pure, bring back the pure me, and then peace and happiness automatically is achieved. So focusing on it seems indirect, because again, we want to focus directly on, give me that Porsche, give me some money, whatever. This idea of I'm going to aim at truth, and somehow that's going to get me. So, but I need to bring back the true me. And if you think about it, which would make me happy? To be authentic and true and real as I move through the day, or to be inauthentic, false, and unreal as I move through the day. And it's really looking at the very foundation of what I feel matters for quality of life.
But some really get that it's not about
Mhm.
the Porsche, it's not about the
Mhm.
status and position, and yet it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
And that they're aiming at trying to change their character. Is there still something that could still kind of happen that I'm still trying to change my character? Because it'll make me happy if I do.
Yeah, the example that we sometimes use is that of a flower. So, this idea of character or virtues is like a blossomed flower, right? It's really beautiful. We even use the metaphor of a spiritual rose, or these different virtues or different flowers. So, it's very beautiful, beautiful fragrance, really inspiring, nice. So, it's, we're nice, we're kind. This is like the flower. And that's a wonderful thing to want, of course, but it's still not aim and objective, because the only way I get the flower is if I plant the seed. And the seed is underground, it's hidden, it's forgotten, but there is no flower without the seed. So if I'm trying to always just go for the flower, when we have just a flower disconnected from a seed, it's called a cut flower. It has a very short lifespan. And so when we just go for virtues without a connection to the seed, to truth, to purity, it's temporary. There will always, if I'm being nice, there will always be something that then upsets me. Something will come along that upsets me, because there's still little desires mixed in with those virtues, and there isn't that purity. So I'm still affected by something. So, in order to really make it sustainable or powerful, or the real thing, if you want, we've got to think about what is the seed behind all of those virtues. And it said purity is the mother of all virtues.
Do you feel that if I continue to practice experiencing, considering myself to be a soul, that relationship between the aim and objective, like how that all works? Because I think sometimes we can, just get quite
Yeah.
headspace. It would become more and more meaningful.
Yeah. So what that looks at is what is purity again, and the way that looks in a living being. We know what purity looks like in orange juice. It's just orange juice. But what does that look like in a human being, and how does soul consciousness get me into that experience? So we say that for a living being, purity, yes, it means nothing foreign is mixed in. So that might be next week. But this idea of the qualities that are intrinsic to us and those that are not. So sometimes we say, oh, anger is just human nature. And what we're suggesting is it's not. We really don't like it when someone gets angry. So I think at the end of the day, we're not really happy when we get angry at someone either. So it's not really our innate state. It's something that we learn. Actually, it's acquired. So this idea of the innate state of the soul. So the purity, when I'm in that innate or natural state, there's three things that happen, which we call purity in a living being. There's contentment, or freedom from desire. There's something called detachment. And I know it's a very loaded word, but in a sense that there's a freedom there, that all the addictions and the strings are not there, that tend to, all those buttons are gone. And the last one is a very high level of self-respect. Those three things are what purity looks like in a living being. When I practice I am a soul, if I genuinely go into the state, I will start to feel those three things emerging. So we call a pure consciousness, that's the seed that creates purity in the living being. That when I, again, as we talked at the beginning, when I go into that state, I really feel fulfilled, because I'm experiencing that peace that I've been seeking. So freedom from desire. One of the core qualities that's connected to the experience of being a soul is bliss, a deep, deep contentment. So no more desires. And then I start to taste my true nature without all the other stuff mixed in. So I start to taste the peace and the power and the lightness. And because I'm experiencing all of these virtues or values in the self, I feel very valuable. So that self respect starts to come. I really start to experience my own value.
One of the challenges you often hear those who take the course
Mm-hmm.
is, I get all that. They'll share that. I'll get all that. And yet, there's still certain things they want to try to achieve in their
Mm-hmm.
life. And that's where the challenge they feel. It's like, I want to consider myself to be a soul,
Mm-hmm.
but there's this tug of war going on inside. I don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I really experience it, then a lot is silenced. A lot of conflict is silenced. So it's really the fact that I'm not experiencing it. Intellectually, I get it, but I'm not actually experiencing it. So I still feel that battle inside. And there is going to be a lot of resistance blocking me from experience. I think I need to know that going in, that there is going to be things internally, not externally. Again, we love to look outside for the problem, but things internally that will block me. Top of the list, ego. Ego does not want this to happen. It's just invested too much in that image. So ego is going to block this. Attachments are going to block it. So there's going to be a lot of things, fear and, that are just, and I just need to know that's going to happen. It's okay. It's okay. So we always come back to that same question. Even with all of that going on, the basic question is, do you believe that you are a soul? That's really, I think, so critical to sort out. Do I believe I am a soul, or do I think I am the body? That's really, to me, the starting point.
Do you think if one spent a bit more time just sitting with that belief?
Mm,
Because sometimes I think we kind of start to just
mm,
analyze or sort of start to have a lot of different thoughts
mm-hmm,
without actually still really deeply, really
mm-hmm.
checking in. Do I really hold that belief?
I think it's really important when you build a house to have a good foundation, and certainly for the spiritual endeavor, a good foundation to take the time. We sometimes say meditation is to become an investigative reporter of the self, to ask some pretty key questions like, do I believe I am a soul? And be quite clear on the answer. Take the time. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That to me is a really valid meditation or reflection, is to have this kind of conversation with the self. What do I believe is true? And to really think it through. Okay, if I think I am the body, what does that mean? Right?
I think in a second one could make some connections.
What that implies, what that means, and if I am a soul, what does that mean? Just to get that very clear inside, because I think that will keep us going when the resistance comes. Doubt is definitely one of the big ammunitions that the resistance will bring up. And so I need to be quite firm. I do believe I am a soul. I may not be feeling it, may not be acting like one, not even sure, what the feeling is, but I do believe that we are souls. Because if we say that we are bodies, there's again certain implications to that.
Mm-hmm. What would you say your experience was like before you came to the study? You've been in the study for 27 years. In terms of the aim and objective piece, in terms of hearing about that first lesson that you are soul.
I think for me, I was waiting to hear these things. I think many of us are waiting. We kind of have feelings, but we can't articulate them. We don't have a container of understanding to put those feelings into. And I definitely feel that's the case for young adults, actually, and youth. They're thinking these things, but they have no way to articulate it. So I think we're kind of waiting to hear these kinds of things. And that was definitely the feeling I had, that, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Thank goodness I thought I was mad. So, if someone stumbles into something like this, they're probably pulled here because they're waiting to hear something like this. And it just made so much sense to me. We look at our world and it is absolutely mad. I'm not just talking about the pandemic. It's absolutely mad. The way we treat ourselves and each other is absolutely insane. And we've normalized it. And so I find it very interesting when people say they want to get back to normal. It's quite abnormal, actually, the way we live. We have children killing children. It's just crazy, this world. So clearly there's something and there's the fact that internally at some level we feel things are off. I find a very hopeful feeling, actually. But again, we don't want to acknowledge it because we're not sure what to do with it, right? This aim and objective, I don't know what method, what approach to address these feelings. So I'll just push them away. Everyone else seems to be okay. So everyone else is doing it. So I'll just keep going. But I think if we really listen, it's an overwhelming thing. I know it feels like to face, but it doesn't go away. Right? It just gets pushed down, that we can feel something is off in how we are living on this planet. So
It's a beautiful topic, and I feel that perhaps we can certainly revisit again. It's such a key topic. And for those who just joined, this is Raja Yoga Essentials, but through an interview format. And we also invite you to email us if you have questions. And this is originally actually the Raja Yoga and You course that happens. And it's for those who've taken the course before and feel they just want to go deeper in it. And so we'll let souls know when the next Raja Yoga course happens. Feel free to check our website, but perhaps maybe we can have an experience.
Something that's very beautiful about embarking on a spiritual study is that I feel I finally am not running away or racing around, but that I stop and actually give time to have important conversations with myself, which is an act of self-care. I am listening to the self. I have the interest to understand the self, and definitely the vision of benefiting the self, of really moving towards my highest potential. We love the phrase, the greatness of the human spirit. And through a spiritual practice, I am deliberately focusing on nurturing the greatness of the human spirit of the self as a way of life, not as random acts or hit and miss, but to really cultivate what is great within the self through a very compassionate and patient study, spiritual study. And it all begins by deeply recognizing myself. a gesture of self respect. I am more than my roles or my actions or possessions. To really acknowledge the self. Who am I on a very deep, eternal level? To really hear that in the self. That's where the journey towards greatness begins, the seed. And to give myself time for that. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, a warm thank you to our interviewee
An interviewer.
and our audience, of course. And I'm going to hand this over to Judy just to let us know of upcoming sessions.
So, our next set of drop-in courses available, or rather sessions, is this Saturday. So, we have drop-in meditation experience from 1 o'clock to 1:45. Anyone is welcome to join. And then at 2 to 3 o'clock on Zoom, we have inner fitness. And this is where we look at the non-physical side of well-being. And the theme today, we've been looking at exploring the spiritual meaning of different classic Hatha Yoga postures. And we're going to look at child's pose, Balasana, this Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. So you're welcome to join us on Zoom. So please visit our website if you're looking for the links for these activities. Thank you so much for joining. Until we meet again. Om Shanti.